You're listening to Season 2, Episode 11 of the Attempt Adventure Podcast. Podcast all about travel, finding adventure every day, and seeking out adventurous ways to make life more interesting. From Bangkok, Thailand, I'm your host, Michael DeRogers, joined as always by my co-host,
James Barrett from Boulder, Colorado.
Yes, sir. Well, James, in this episode, I'm going to be having a conversation with Brittnay Sharman from the Travelling Housesitters. We talk about her adventures around the world. We talk about her Globetrotting Housesitting adventures, which is an incredible way to travel, as well as just share some tips about becoming a house sitter and kind of getting into that field as well. So it's a great conversation. Had a lot of fun talking to Brittnay. But first, James, before we get into that, did you do anything new or adventurous this week?
Let me think. It's hard when we might have to change this segment.
Okay. Have you been outdoors? Have you been outside anywhere?
I mean, I was gone. I just got back on Tuesday night.
Okay. What about your road trip? How was your road trip? Did you see anything interesting on the drive?
I got a speeding ticket. It's new. It was my first one ever.
Oh, you can talk about that if you want to, but you might not want to
incriminate myself.
Incriminate yourself.
That's the thing. Yeah, I think we're going to have to, we'll talk about that at some point. If we keep recording a bunch of them at once, I don't know if we can keep this segment what it is.
I know, which is a shame because it's a cool idea. I really like the segment. You know, I like being forced to do something new. We're going to have to figure something out with that.
I'll take a penalty. Screw it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so you did not do anything new or adventurous this week, which is fine.
No, I did not.
So, James, in that case,
I have completed my other penalty, so this is not a double penalty scenario.
Maybe, James, I don't know, for transparency's sake, do you just want to explain to the to our listeners what is going on with us this week? Why we're having trouble having done something?
So, to everyone listening, Michael and I are trying really hard to get ahead. The do something new every week, what's the word I'm looking for? It was created in a time where we were recording one episode a week. We are now recording 2 or 3 episodes at a time. So, right, like today, we recorded 2 episodes, so that's 2 weeks worth of episodes. Obviously, we can't travel into the future and do something new and exciting to come back.
Right.
So, we're working on what to do about that. But for now, for this week's episode, I did not do anything else new or exciting.
See, James, I didn't either. And the thing is, it's only been like a week, and we've recorded like 5 episodes in the last week real time. And so that's why we actually have, we had a penalty, which we haven't even shared with you guys. Like we have completed them, but we haven't finished the videos because it's actually only been like a week, which means today, James, I'm going to spin the wheel with you as well. So maybe our thing today, since we haven't done something new, now we're going to know what we need to do new for next time. Okay. As well. So
I'll take it.
So what I'm going to do, James, this time, you got your phone. I figured out what we're going to do. I'm going to call you.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to just hold it up to my screen and you can see what you get.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why it seems like we aren't doing anything.
We're very adventurous. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry, folks. We're very adventurous. Okay. I'm calling you now. Okay, James, your task is to discover a local haunted site. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to go there, but you can research it, maybe drive past it, learn about it, and give me a presentation about a local haunted site somewhere in Boulder that is haunted. That could just be a research project.
I can do that. Sweet. It might be my house. I feel like my house is haunted.
Well, you can find out about it and you let me know. So that'll be fun. And that's a pretty easy one because that's just research. So you can just maybe, I'll give you a week for that. We'll talk about that in our next week's episode. So next week, we'll talk about both of our penalties. Okay. All 4 of our penalties. Yep. So you don't have to do anything new next week.
Oh boy, here's yours.
Okay. Mine, James, is to discover my nearest historical marker. And you actually had that one sometime in the past, but that's what I'm doing today. So, okay, very good. I'm going to quit calling you now. Okay, so that was what that was. But there we go. So you have to discover your nearest local haunted site. I have to find a historical marker, and we'll give each other presentations about them And so for those, I guess it's kind of hard to make a video about that. So we'll just do the presentation here because that's enough proof. If we've researched it, it means we're able to talk about it. So
Yep.
the next episode, we are going to be talking about all 4 of our challenges. All right. So that next episode will have been 2 weeks real time. That's when you're going to get that.
Yeah, we're going to have to figure something out with that, or else we're going to be doing a lot of penalties, which, I
Right.
mean, could be fun.
Yeah. If we add like 100 different things to the list or something like that, that could be fun as well.
I mean, if we do that, if we keep adding more or get suggestions and things like that, that can just be our what you're doing this week.
Yeah. Instead of what did you do last week, what are you going to do this week?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can talk about that. We can figure that out if this happens next time. We'll discuss that. But that's a good idea. We might just replace it if we get a lot of ideas for that.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a request for you guys. If you would you please share and review the show? Maybe even just word of mouth or share it on social media. We're always happy to have new listeners. And if there's someone that you know that you think might be interested in adventure and outdoor stuff and travel, why don't you pass this on to them? Next, just a little reminder of our monthly challenge. This is, I believe, your last week to get it in. It is from Linda King, of course, and it is travel writing. Write approximately 1,000 words about where you live. Act like a travel writer. It's fun. And lastly, if you do want to support the show, I'd like to invite you guys to check out our Ko-fi page. It's kofi.com/attemptadventure. So there you can leave us a small donation if you want to buy us a beer or a coffee. You can also join one of our membership tiers where you get some benefits and also help support our show. As I said, in this episode, we're going to be talking to Brittnay Sharman, the Globetrotting house sitter from the travellinghousitters.com. So enjoy the episode, everyone. Enjoy the interview. All right. Well, welcome to the show. So glad that you're here. Well, first thing that we always like to ask our guests is just to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you live, what you do, and what is your history, your relationship with adventure.
Yeah, my name's Brittnay. I'm from the Travelling Housesitters. I've been house sitting for about 5 years. This was pre-COVID. I've house sat in about 15 countries, looked after about 40 homes. So that includes New Zealand, Australia, Italy, Greece, France, Montenegro. We did some in Thailand and in the UK. Yeah, so I've been going for a while.
That's really incredible. How did you get into that? How did you discover that was even a possibility?
Yeah, so I was living in London at the time and I was just going to meet up with a friend at the park and she showed up with the dog. And I was just kind of, where'd you get this guy from? She's like, I'm house sitting at the moment. Oh. And she was explaining it to me and she was living in the most beautiful part of London. And we were used to living in share houses at that time. So I was pretty impressed and kind of asked her a few questions. And then I ended up signing up myself and doing a few house sits and we were living there.
That's amazing because I think a lot of times one of the things that keeps people from traveling the world is that accommodations just get so expensive. So you've mentioned some of the places that you had stayed. What do you think were the most interesting or the most, your best experiences house sitting around the world?
Well, we had 6 weeks living in Rome. That was incredible. We had a lot of time. It was midsummer, so it was really busy and really, really hot. And it was so nice because we could just go out, explore one place in the morning, and then by the time it got too hot, we can go home. We didn't feel the pressure to be out all day. And you don't get that pressure you put on yourself when you're traveling. You think, I've spent this much money, I've got to do it all today. So it was nice to just go slow in Rome and explore everything. And we also really enjoyed Montenegro, and then in Greece. We were there for about 6 weeks as well in a beautiful home that overlooked the ocean. That's
awesome. What do you think are the benefits that you get from staying in a home rather than a hotel or a guest house?
Probably the number one thing is the community. A lot of the time, the homeowners, they want to introduce you to their friends. They want to show you their favorite cafes and bakeries and markets. So the community you get, and also we love that you have a full kitchen, you can cook, you can do your washing. You kind of just feel like you're at home but on the road. So you kind of get the best of both worlds.
I think that's super cool. It really, I guess, gives you that sort of that local experience that you don't get when you're acting like a tourist, right? So how does it work? How do people find you, and how do you decide that you want to go and take care of their property for them?
Usually, if I know I'm heading to a certain location, I check. There's a few house sitting websites we use, and I'll just jump on there each morning and see if anything pops up in that area, and then I'll apply for it. I know some people, they just kind of see what's out there and they'll apply for it and go to those locations. I try and pick places where I think I want to go to.
Have you ever had any kind of, I don't know, misunderstandings with neighbors or even with the homeowners that could lead to some funny stories or experiences?
We haven't had any misunderstandings. I think one thing, actually, we were looking after these dogs in France, and we just thought they were really disobedient. They wouldn't listen to us at all. And then finally we realized that all of our commands were not in French.
Oh, how funny.
So we had to ask the homeowners, sit, stay. And after that, they were incredible. And I think we're even pronouncing their names wrong.
On the subject of pets, so dogs, I guess cats, what other kind of pets have you had to look after?
Dogs, cats, chicken. We looked after a turtle. Yeah, he was very fast. You'd let him out of the cage for a minute and he'd be gone. Some rabbits as well. A lot of people do farm sitting, which is kind of really in demand, but I don't have much experience with that. So I kind of, and that's one thing when you're looking at house sits, you can filter by just look after cats, just dogs, or you can say no animals at all, because some people kind of aren't comfortable with, looking after a dog, or they might be allergic. Right. So you can kind of filter out these ones.
What are the unexpected things that have happened while you were staying at someone else's home, or just in your travels in general?
I can't think of a particular house sitting incident, but I've got a good story in one of our travels.
Okay.
We were going in between a house sit in Montenegro and Greece, and we'd heard all these things about Albania. The roads are bad, the people aren't friendly, all these sorts of things. We're a bit nervous. And so we're driving through the country. It was beautiful. It was actually some of the nicest roads we'd driven in Europe. And then our camper van broke down.
Oh, no.
So we're stuck on the side of the road, and some friendly locals kind of came and tried to give us a hand. They called some friends to look at the van. They couldn't fix it, so they called some more of their friends. Eventually, someone towed it. And this is all done via Google Translate. No one could out. We weren't conversing with each other. They couldn't get the van going, so they let us stay in the workshop overnight in the van. The next day, they rocked up with coffee and breakfast for us, and they tried to fix it all day. And eventually we said to them, well, this is via Google Translate. We said, do you want to buy the van? We don't really want it anymore. We don't want to drive all the way back to the UK to sell it. And we sold it to this workshop. And then they took us home to their family home. We had dinner with the whole family. And then they drove us to the bus station, and we caught a bus down to Greece. So that's probably one of the biggest adventures we had. And just when you have a preconceived notion about something, it's so nice when that kind of all gets broken down. And we're still in contact with them. So it's not so nice. Cool.
That's really cool. Those are the kind of travel experiences that you remember years later. So what kind of objects might you find in a home in one country that would be maybe unusual in another country, or vice versa? What are some things that homes all across the world have in common?
Everyone keeps their kitchen the same. After all the houses I've done, everyone has their kitchen the same. You've stumped me on that one, but I'd have to say I used to think that most people would have internet. Yeah. But I've actually come across quite a few that don't have Wi-Fi in their house. So I thought that was a bit of a common thing. So that's I now do have Wi-Fi. You don't realize kind of how odd things are until you start explaining it to other people. We had one dog, and this was a Newfoundland. So it's one of those ones that are about 50 or 60 kilos. Mm-hmm. And they said every morning he gets 1.5 kilos of mincemeat with 3 rice cakes crumbled on top with a sprinkle of oregano.
So, have you had any trouble with the pets? Has that ever been a major issue?
It is stressful because you're kind of looking after someone's 2 most important things as their home and their pets. So I count myself so lucky that I've never had really any emergencies, never had to take an animal to the vet, anything like that. I have seen that happen before with other house sitters. We have had one cat, and when we arrived, it threw up in my suitcase, and the people saw it, and they're like, oh, we're so sorry. He does that every day. And we were so lucky that it kind of happened, because if it did happen during a sit, we would have been so worried.
It's panicking, yeah.
We need to take him to the vet. Other than that, we haven't really had any issues with animals. So, touch wood that luck keeps going.
Right. No, that's something I'd be worried about, or having a pipe burst or having some kind of emergency. Have you ever had to deal with any kind of emergencies?
I actually have had one. I had a situation where I pushed the toaster down and it managed to trip the whole house out.
Oh, no.
And safety switch wouldn't work, and it was 8 o'clock at night, so it was pitch black, and I'm trying to get the safety switch on. I called the emergency electrician, and they're like, oh, it's a $600 call-out fee. And so I was like, oh, God, all right, I might just wait a bit. And then eventually it flipped back on, the safety switch. But the next morning, when it had tripped, it had somehow surged the hot water system. So the hot water system was broken. No. So I got in touch with the homeowners, and they got a plumber to come out. They got an electrician to come out. They had a look at everything, and they realized it was the toaster surging the house every time, but they couldn't get the hot water system to work. So for about 4 or 5 days, I had no hot water, middle of winter, and surprisingly, it does get really cold here in Australia in winter, so having a cold shower was very nice. But I think that was, and I just felt so incredibly guilty about that. But they said that's fine, like it would have happened if we were home, so they were great about it. And I think with a lot of the house sitting platforms as well, you get covered for insurance as well.
Oh, good.
So if anything really goes wrong.
Like, how do you prepare for that? Do you like try to look up the emergency numbers, things like that ahead of time? Because I know that a lot of that can be very different from one country to the next. If somebody wants to do what you do, how can they make sure that they're prepared for these kinds of emergencies?
Well, I have like a little pre-arrival document that I send to the homeowner, and that has all like where is your power box located? What's the emergency numbers? Where's the vet? Do you give me permission to pay? How does that all kind of work? So I have a whole bunch of questions I send over ahead of time. And that kind of gives me a chance to think about it rather than getting there and they're packing and they're busy and you're trying to ask them all these things. So I get that ahead of time, because one time we actually had another situation where the power went out, and we spent about 2 or 3 hours looking for the power box, couldn't find it anywhere. And we were about to call the homeowner, and one of us must have opened something in the kitchen, and they'd redone the house at some point, and the power box was inside of a kitchen cupboard.
Oh, no.
So that's just like, just like these little things happen. And now we put that on the our little pre-arrival document.
That's so important. Okay, that's great. So just be prepared, right?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and it has everything from what day is your bin day, what color bins go out when, all those little things that you wouldn't think, but it's just really handy to have rather than calling up when someone's on holidays and go, oh, what day's bin day?
I guess those are the things that you learn from experience, right? Every time that you realize you don't know something, you got to add it to the list.
Yeah.
And it's not just been houses, because in your email to me, you mentioned something about a boat as well. So what was that like? Boat sitting?
Well, that one wasn't actually me. That was Jay. So he house sits as well with me.
Okay.
And we'd done 9 months house sitting around Europe, and I'd already promised my family I was going to come home for Christmas. We got an email from a woman who lived in Grenada, which is off one of the islands. It's in the Caribbean, and she had a boat there, a nice catamaran, and she wanted a house sitter for 3 or 4 months. So Jay ended up going there and doing that. So we had this really cute little cat in the catamaran, and he loved it. Internet was a bit dicey, but other than that, it was incredible. And then after that house sit, we were meant to meet in Mexico for another house sit. That was April 2020. So you can kind of what happened there, it all kind of fell apart.
So I guess was that the last time that you had been out, like internationally?
Yep, that was. And I am hoping at the end of the year I can get back to Mexico, because I've got all this flight credit I want to use.
Right. So that's your next stop then, Mexico and that part of the world?
I haven't locked it in. I am on. I look at Skyscanner now and then, but that's kind of like the next place I want to go to.
Yeah, I think that we're at this point now. We're so close. I think a couple more months and we'll be back to traveling.
Yes. I think people are starting to get a bit of confidence booking things as well.
Right. It's less likely to be canceled last minute or anything like that at this point.
I'm seeing so many more house sits come up. I think especially with summer kind of coming up in the Northern Hemisphere, just so many coming up.
Great. Well, what were the maybe the most exciting homes or the most interesting homes that you've been in?
The one we had in Greece was this incredible home. We're about an hour out of Athens on the coast. So it kind of looked like a Greek island, but it was more of a local place. And the home was just beautiful. We could see we had about 180-degree view of the ocean. And then one weekend, the homeowner, she actually had to come home just for a night. And she said, it was a Sunday, and she said, I'd love to do a Sunday lunch with you. So she invited all the family around. She had us in the kitchen. She was showing us all of her recipes. We were cooking with her, and we just spent the whole day with the family. It was incredible. So that was probably one of our favorite ones we did.
How cool. Now, you mentioned that you are a digital nomad as well, that you're working while traveling, which is really the dream. So tell me more about that too, because I think that's another thing that our listeners would love to hear about.
So I'm a web developer. I worked in an agency before when I was living in London. And then once we started the house sitting, I've gone out on my own. So it really works well together, because you don't have that stress of monthly expenses coming in every month. So you can kind of focus on your business, focus on what you're doing rather than think, oh, I've got to make, this much for rent this month. You can really focus on what you're doing. And I think house sitting, it kind of just gives you that freedom to work from anywhere, as long as you get a house with Wi-Fi.
Right.
And I think it's much easier than living in an Airbnb where most homes, they might have an actual office, just at the kitchen table or something like that. And I think it just works really well in together with digital nomads and house sitting.
I guess you get that extra level of comfort. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face when you're house sitting?
I think it's trying to get the house sits to line up. When you're house sitting with another person, it's quite easy because you can kind of do that. Have one person in one place and one person in the other one if you overlap. But if you do, when we've had a few times, we've had a few days in between a house sit, we just get an Airbnb or kind of use that as like a bit of a holiday, a bit of a getaway. So I think it is trying to get things to line up. That can be a bit of a challenge. And I think also it's kind of, you can't pack too much when you're moving, every single month. And I think if digital nomads will know this, you don't want to have too much stuff. So just kind of keeping things to a minimum, that's been one of the challenges.
If someone wants to get into this, how could somebody start? What are some of the most important resources?
We didn't really have many resources when we were getting started. I think the main thing we did was, we didn't even realize at the time, but we were applying around Christmas. So we probably started applying around October, and we didn't really get much, sending a few applications out, and then applied for a couple in December. And all of a sudden, everyone kept emailing back saying, yep, can you come? Can we meet you?
Wow.
And we didn't realize that kind of starting in that holiday period, there's just so much demand that people are willing to take you on when you don't have as many references.
Right.
So we did that. And then I also suggest to people maybe ask friends and family if you could house sit for them. That kind of gives you an indication if it's, because some people might not really enjoy that kind of living in someone else's home or the stress of the responsibility. So I think that having a go with friends and family is a great way to start. And also just doing it locally in your own town. Like when we did the one in London, she said, you live around the corner. Why do you want to house sit here? And we said, just kind of building up these references. So I think the references are one of the most important things. It's kind of like a job. People want to be able to see what you've done, your experience and that. I've got some resources on our site, the Travelling Housesitters, which is just how to get started. And that mainly is just building up your references. We also used just a little screenshot of our Airbnb reviews. So just kind of that social proof that people like to see.
Right. Well, tell us more about your site. What can people find there?
Yeah. So it's just the travellinghousitters.com. And on there, we have all of our experiences from each country we've been in, as well as just how to build your references, because we do a lot of house sitting in Australia as well, because I'm Australian, how to start house sitting in Australia, how to house it internationally, just kind of because I have a Facebook group, a community, and we have about 7,000 people in there. And I just kind of, whenever I get a question in there, someone asks, can we house it as a family? Can we house it with our own animals? Can we house it with kids? Just all those kind of different questions. I try to make a resource for people so I can send them there and, give them all the information at once. So, we've interviewed quite a few house sitting families. So that's also a big thing as well. People always say, can we, go as a family? And you definitely can. A few of the house sitting websites, you can actually filter, is this appropriate for kids to bring and things like that.
Are there any little tips that maybe people might overlook? Something that you would always carry with you that you wouldn't want to count on someone else having at their home, or just any other little tips that could make it a more positive or a more comfortable experience?
I think that really my best tip is sending that document ahead of time, because if, like I said before, when someone's leaving for a holiday, they're kind of all over the place. So kind of getting all that information down on a piece of paper might make you feel a little more relaxed, knowing where the vet is, what their number is, just a local contact, they might have a friend around the corner you can call if anything goes wrong, and just and on that document we also have how often do you want to be contacted, all the kind of things that it's going to make it a positive experience for you and the homeowner, and hopefully you'll get a good review afterwards.
Right. How much communication do you typically have with the homeowners?
We always say, do you want photos or videos? Do you want them daily? Do you want that once a week? And some people will say, only contact me if it's a problem. Or some people, we looked after one woman's cats, and they were quite Instagram famous. They probably had about 10,000 followers.
Oh, how cool.
And she wanted 3 or 4 photos a day of the cats doing things. They were a quite interesting pair. These cats, you wouldn't know it, like to watch YouTube all day long. Yeah, so we got
So fun.
yeah, each one's different, and they want different kind of contacts. Sometimes we've had a few elderly animals, and the people just want to know how they're getting on each day, and if their medication's going, or how that's going. So it kind of varies from each house sit.
What does adventure mean to you? Because there's a lot of different ways that people seek out adventure, and of course, that's the theme of our show.
I would probably say adventure means to me is exploring a new place, kind of learning all about the community, the culture and the food. Yeah. Kind of I like to see how people interact with each other. And I find like you can learn so much about each other when you can see what sort of food they prepare and how they enjoy it and how they enjoy it together. So you can tell I'm a big foodie here.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that's
awesome.
my favorite thing is just, walking around a new city and just kind of poking your head into shops and all those sorts of things. That's kind of adventure for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's cool. And probably when you are staying at someone's home, you're not going to be in the, the main tourist center with all the hostels and the guest houses. You're probably in a much more like authentically local neighborhood as well, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, much more homely. The one we were in Rome, we were only a 15-minute walk into the city, into like the city center. But before the homeowner left, he took us around and he showed us his favorite little bakery and his favorite coffee shop. And finding those places is incredible. And they're not the kind of places you're ever going to see on a 10 places to see in Rome kind of list.
It's a new way of traveling. And it's something that, for me, I've just never considered it before, trying to travel that way. And, finding good accommodations, good and affordable accommodations is not easy. Awesome. So what are some of the websites that you use for finding these opportunities?
I use mainly Trusted House Sitters. I like them. I find it's kind of like the Airbnb of house sitting. Is all the homeowners are there and all the house sitters are there, and all the best ones are there. But what you might find is a little more competition. So if you are going to a certain region, there are more localized house sitting sites. So in Australia, we have about 4 or 5. So if you are heading to a certain region, if you want to, you can reach out to me and tell me I'm going to the UK or I'm going to Canada or I'm going to Asia, and I can kind of point you in the direction of where I think is the best place to look for house sits. Because like you were saying before, it's different areas are kind of more used to house sitting. And I'd say in Asia, it's not quite as big yet. But what we've found is it's quite big in expat areas. So in Bangkok, Singapore, and those people, they've got animals, but they also head home for a month or 2 every year. So you can also join expat groups as well and kind of advertise your services in areas where it's not up and kind of introduce the concept to people. Because once they realize they don't have to put their dog in the kennel or they have to be friends or family to house sit, they're kind of quite open to the idea of it as well.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I think we need to look into that. My wife is a veterinarian, so that might be she might be able to help take care of the animals also.
Yeah, that'd be a great thing to put on your profile.
Definitely. Well, so you've already shouted out your website, but where can people find you online?
Yeah, I'd probably say the best place to find me would be in the Facebook group. I'm there every day answering everyone's questions. And so that's just, I can give you the link for that. So it's just, I can't actually remember what it is right now, but I'm sure I can send it over to you and you can put it in the show notes. Everyone
certainly will.
Yep. So there's 8,000 people in there. We have a mix of homeowners, new house sitters, experienced house sitters. So we have people putting up jobs in there for looking for house sitters. We also have people helping each other and all those sorts of things. So that's probably the best place to find me.
Very cool. And yes, again, we will put links to all of that, whatever social media, whatever groups, websites, whatever you send me, everyone can find that on our show notes in the podcast description and on our website. Awesome. Well, it has been so much fun. This is like a new opportunity. I feel like the world has expanded, something I never considered. Do you have any final messages that you'd like to give to the Attempt Adventure listeners?
I think that you just have to get out there, and the world's not as big, scary place like you might think it is, like our Albania trip. Like once you actually get out there and you start experiences, you realize that people just want to meet you and chat to you and want to help each other. So I think get out there and have an adventure and you're going to enjoy it.
Awesome. Love it. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I hope that our listeners feel inspired and that they definitely come and join your group and check out your website and will maybe give this a try themselves. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. I really am glad that we got to sit down and have this talk today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
That's really cool.
So, James, I've never done like international house sitting. It's one of those things that it's like it never even occurred to me. It's a totally new way of traveling. And like we mentioned in the episode, sometimes accommodations are the biggest cost of travel.
Oh, 100%.
It's one of those things I never even thought about doing.
Had I not been able to stay with you, my trips to Thailand would be very different.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very different. Pretty much anywhere you go, accommodations are going to be one of the definitely top two, I would say, most expensive.
Maybe flights and accommodations,
things. If you're going on a fancy trip, flights probably will be more expensive than accommodations, but definitely second. I have never even considered, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, really.
I did not know. But I mean, it makes sense.
It does. Like when I travel, James, I travel really cheap. I don't stay in hostels. I do stay in hostels, but I usually won't bother staying in a dorm anymore. I feel like I'm past that.
You used to.
I have before. Yeah, I have before. I never really enjoyed it. I've had to before, but you can still stay at very cheap accommodations. We're talking $10, $15 a night, sometimes less here in Thailand and Southeast Asia. They're bare bones. Sometimes they don't have air conditioning. Like that floating guest house we stayed at just had a fan, but that was really nice.
Cool though.
Yeah, it was. And it wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't really hot either.
We got lucky, I think.
Yeah. But I've stayed at very cheap places. But if you're house sitting, you get to stay at like real houses, and not just real houses of people who are rich enough to want somebody to take care of their house for them while they're gone. So they're usually nice, totally different situation.
Definitely. I mean, that's a brilliant idea. That's all I got. It's so smart.
Yeah, it is. So, James, what are some of your favorite accommodations you've stayed at while you were traveling? Anything unique?
That floating hotel.
Floating hotel in Kanchanaburi on the river.
Again, it was pretty bare bones. I mean, it had beds, it had a fan, it had an air conditioning unit, but they didn't work.
I think you had to pay extra to get them to turn it on for you.
Did you? Oh.
I think so.
But anyway, I mean, that place was a lot of fun. Maybe because it was New Year's and we just sat outside drinking chong all night.
Yeah.
And
with what's her name, that lady?
With a school teacher who definitely didn't drink. She drank like a quarter of the beer we gave her. It was upsetting.
And she left us to go party with some man.
Yeah. Like we weren't good enough. Anyway, that place was a lot of fun. The hotel that we stayed at when we went to Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, that was just really nice.
It was just really nice. Like, nothing super unique or anything about it, but the lady at the desk was really nice and gave us an ocean view.
Yeah, we got an upgrade.
Yeah, we got a free upgrade. That was great. Off of Groupon. I didn't think they did that.
Oh.
If anything, it's a free downgrade. They're like, you know what? No, you don't get this room.
Right.
But anyway, I'm trying to think. I have not stayed anywhere super unique, honestly. The floating hotel is definitely one of them. I've stayed at some Airbnbs, but they're all just like houses. They're not really anything. I'm trying to think of if I've stayed anywhere like crazy or like unique or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of drawing a blank here. What about you? You stayed at more places than I have.
Well, I think one of my favorites was a homestay I did in Vietnam. That was really nice. We were staying at someone's home. It wasn't like an Airbnb because the people were there and it was like a little tiny hotel at the person's home. But it was really nice because you're actually at a house. There was a nice little garden. Every morning, the lady would go out somewhere into town and come back with some local street food that she would serve us for breakfast. So we got to try so much food. This is in Hue, which was the like old imperial capital. It's like right in the middle of Vietnam. And so we got to try all this great food. The town itself is known for its food. It's kind of the foodie part, which in a country that's already famous for its really good food, of course. And so we got such a good connection with that local place by having just local breakfast every morning and someone showing us around and taking us around. So that was nice. That's how I kind of like to travel, staying at like homestays, stuff like that with the family, because then you get to learn a bit. I haven't done it all that much, but that was a fun one. Other than that, I mean, I typically stay at pretty cheap places when I'm traveling.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed when we were in the second place we stayed in Kanchanaburi.
Oh, at the bus stop. Yeah.
It was weirdly nice.
It was weird. It was tiny. It was so small and so simple, but it was really
super, super tiny. That one did have air conditioning. That was nice.
Yeah, it was in a weird location too.
It was, but they had a nice little garden. You could get some tea and sit out in the garden, and it was right off the like rotunda where the buses all went.
Yeah,
it was in a really weird spot, But I mean, they always had street food right there. We got some great chicken and some Cheers beer, lager beer.
That's where we discovered how funny that
And
label was.
see, for me, my favorite places are based way more off memory than they are the place. And so I would like to try and stay at some like unique places. It just sounds fun.
Traveling around, staying at weird places. Yeah, sometimes that can give you a good memory. I think I would like to try house sitting sometime. I think that might be an interesting experience. Get some cool houses, some local neighborhood experience. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, again, huge thanks to Brittnay. That was a lot of fun, and it kind of opened my eyes to something I did not know.
Awesome.
Very good. Well, James, it's time for our favorite segment, Adventures in the News. Now, this week, sir, it's my turn. This is one for you. This is something you can do, James.
Okay.
So, there is a $10,000 treasure hidden in Colorado. So, this is by Tin Cup Whiskey Company. Tin Cup Whiskey has been hosting a treasure hunt over the last few weeks, and their latest round of clues are about to send searchers to the trails in Colorado. This company has created what they call hiders. They've got 3 golden shot glasses placed on various trails around Colorado. So when your cup is found, it gives you, you exchange it to them for $10,000 cash prize. It is somewhere in Colorado, James, and there are clues, and the clues so far are this. It is not buried. It is off the beaten path. It's nowhere dangerous. It's outside, found after an adventure worth toasting, they say. There are other clues as well that they are releasing on their Instagram as well as their other social media. So it seems like kind of a fun thing. It reminds me a bit of the Forest Finn treasure, which maybe we could do a whole episode about that.
Yeah, I was just about to bring up that.
So there you go, James. So maybe if you follow the clues, you can find a golden shot glass and get $10,000.
I could use $10,000.
And then we will not need to ask people to go to our ko-fi.com/attemptadventure and support the show.
See, the thing about that is I worry about someone not knowing and finding it and then just throwing it away thinking it's litter. But anyway, I'm sure they're looking out for that.
If I found a golden shot glass, I might just keep it. I don't think I'd throw it away. I'd be like, oh, this is cool. I put it on my shelf, not knowing it was worth $10,000.
That's cool, though. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
See, there's a lot of trails in Colorado.
Yeah, I think they've given more specific clues than that. I think that you can find those clues, but it's meant to be found. It's not meant to be something you just stumble upon. So I think they're going to be giving actual clues that you can follow. I've not looked into the clues. I don't live anywhere near, but you do. So check it out, James. I'll send you the link.
Okay, I'll try and get us $10,000.
Okay, counting on you.
I'll split it with you.
Okay, deal. Cool. Well, guys, again, if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe. Please consider giving us a review on your podcast app of choice, maybe a 5-star review if you're feeling generous and if you really enjoy our show. It does definitely help us out. And before we finish up, I want to give you one last reminder to check out our Ko-fi page, as well as to participate in the monthly challenge, which is to write 1,000 words about your hometown, like a travel writer. Right? You can always find more Attempt Adventure content on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, where we are Attempt Adventure. You can also find us on Twitter at Attempt Pod. I started tweeting out the new episodes. I don't think I'm going to do much with Twitter. It's not the best place to get in touch with us. It will be very sporadic at best, I think. But as usual, the best place to find us is attemptadventure.com, where you can find our show notes, you can find pictures from the episodes, blog posts, news, updates about the monthly challenge, and stuff like that. You can also send us listener mail. We want to hear from you. hello@attemptadventure.com. We would be really excited to hear whatever you have to say. We read every message we get. You can also click on the Contact Us button on our website, attemptadventure.com. All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening. And as always, until next time,
keep adventuring.